Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I'm your host, Rich Owens, and it's nice to be back. Apologies for the lack of content last week. I will hold my hands up and blame myself entirely for that one. I have had all of the illnesses. I still have some of them, which is why I sound a little bit more sultry than normal today. Go back and watch last week's podcast for the first instance of illness, where I look like I'm declining as the episode goes on in real time, because I really was. But I'm back, I'm better, and I am delighted to be joined by two of the nicest people in the world. We've got the full FM team here today. We've got Kev, the United City FM, and of course, we've got Jeb. Everybody's here. Everybody looks lovely. Kev, how are we, friend?
Well, I'm doing brilliantly well, Rich, because very, very kindly you took all of the illnesses. So I didn't have any of them. So I felt great. Thank you very much. I feel great. Really happy to be here. Looking forward to getting into some FM talk with you guys.
Oh, mate, if there's one thing I'm happy to do, it is fall on the poorly sword for everybody. I will do it. I will take on all the maladies. I've spent a week feeling like some kind of like ridiculous, like, Victorian waif. Like, I've honestly been expecting a plague doctor to come around and just put me down, which is lovely. One of my colleagues at work, she works with horses, and every single day I walk into the office, she goes, "Richard, if you were one of my ponies, you know what I'd have to do?" I was like, "Yes, you'd give me a bag of oats and you would shoot me in the head." But fortunately, I'm a real life human being, so it's all fine. Speaking of fine real life human beings, Jeb, how are we, pal?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm sorry, I'm just very confused. My lights have just changed colour just behind me for no apparent reason whatsoever. But there we are. Just like what's going on? Yeah, I'm good. A very long 2 weeks of not seeing your face, Rich. I mean, we got to see a little bit this week, but we didn't get to speak to you or anything along those lines. But yeah, long 2 weeks of path to the playoffs, but an enjoyable 2 weeks, I definitely have to say.
Absolutely, and we're gonna talk PvP later on. But it's ironic, isn't it, that we've gone 2 weeks without recording a podcast, and ironically, still spent a significant amount of time with each other in different capacities over those 2 weeks. So it's been fine. It's been absolutely lovely. But as I say, it's a pleasure to be back. I've missed you both, and I've missed talking to audiences as well. So this is lovely. I'm happy. A degree of normality has resumed. First things first. First things first. We've got a lot of bits and pieces to talk about today, so I'm excited to get going. Before we dive into the real meat and potatoes, because I say we've all been PvPing in different capacities. Before that, it's always really nice to have little success stories on this podcast. It's nice to be able to talk about successes that people have had. Mine, in terms of my saves, have been few and far between this year. Few and far between. Kev, as we've talked about before, you have a beautiful habit of just falling upwards as your streams continue.
But the successes are even still further and further between, I assure you. I won a match a couple of days ago, which is good.
That's incredible. That's huge. We're going to have a conversation post-record about how you do that. But if there's one of us who has been significantly more successful than the two combined, Jeb, you've been doing bits in Italy, haven't you?
Yeah, you could say that Pescara are a bit overqualified to be in Serie A, but it was a very interesting end to the season. We were top of the league when I think with 10 games left, and we were in the Serie A Cup, which brings all the Serie A, B, and Che. I can only do that part of the alphabet. I can do the C in Italian, but I can't do the rest. I am learning Italian. I did 100% a lesson actually during one of my PvP endeavors while we were waiting for something to happen. But so we won the league, 92 points, a record-breaking points haul. We scored 90. I think we scored 97 goals, which was a record goal haul. And Eduardo Vigani, my striker, who was a backup striker to start off with, he actually scored at the weekend for Pescara in real life. He got 41 goals in the league and 53 goals in total. We won the Serie A Cup. We also won the Super Cup, where they bring all the winners of each of the individual divisions together, and we got promoted. It worked quite nicely. It was lovely. The only slight very bizarre thing. We were on a 10-match winning streak towards the end of the season. Vigani needed one more goal to get 50 for the season. We needed 3 more goals to get 100 for the season. And we lost the final game 6-0. I started a full-strength squad, had everything out there. For some reason, we lost the final game 6-0. I still don't know to this day or how that happened. We didn't change anything. It was what we were rolling with, and it just worked really, really well. And as we go into the postseason, funny enough, if you score 53 goals in the season, other teams notice you, and it's really, really annoying. It's like, leave him alone. I've got him signed on a contract. But yeah, I think a number of French squads came in. I was going to say Chernobyl, but it's not Chernobyl on Cult.
Wow.
It wasn't Chernobyl. It wasn't them. Clermont, exactly the same. Yeah, sounds exactly there. Clermont came in. A couple of Swiss clubs as well. Swiss Premier League clubs came in for Vigani. But luckily, he's been quite resistant on our side, and he's quite favourable on it. We made a couple of biggish signings as we go into Serie B. We picked up a central defender for 425k, which is a big outlay in this division. He should be all right. Replaces a couple of them. We got rid of a lot of the rubbish that was out on loan and the rubbish that was in the squad as well at the end of the season. So we had a big clear out. We made quite a bit of money on some of the loan signings that came back that just weren't part of the squad in any shape or form, which is quite nice to see. And then we also went to Liverpool, and a tribute masking is on, obviously, in my save, despite the results of some horrible polls and things like that. But a tribute masking is on, and I picked up a Polish winger from Liverpool for 200k. His name is, I wrote it down here just in case I forget it, Musialowski. He wasn't worth 200k. I should have really done some more scouting on him. I have heard good things in real life about him, but I should have probably done some proper scouting on him. Despite me defending how you should scout and you find those wonder kids, I just went across my own advice from a couple of weeks ago. We got into the Coppa Italia Propria. Let's go with that one. Yeah, we got into that. We go through the qualifying rounds. And the thing that I do like about the Coppa Italia, they just tell you who you're going to play as you go along. So if we beat Sampdoria in the next round, we then go on to play Genoa, and then it progresses further through. And I think we can play Roma maybe if we get further down, but we've got to play Sampdoria as we go. We've not started that season. We will probably actually start the season after recording this pod, so we might be a little bit further along. But yeah, we also picked up Hatem Ben Arfa, which is brilliant.
Nice.
It actually worked really nicely. He sat there in the shadow striker role, sometimes dropped into an engage. Did score one worldie, which is probably all I wanted for him, really, more than anything else. But then at the end of the season, he goes, I've improved considerably. I want a new contract. And then you actually went into his attributes, and every single one had gone down. I was like, well, you haven't, have you? Like, you're lying to me now. So we've fallen out of Hatem Ben Arfa. Big shock. He's fallen out with his club. But record-breaking season in Serie A. We're going into Serie B. We're probably going to heavily work our way through over the festive period on that save. And hopefully get Serie A. Unfortunately, Verratti and Immobile are doing really, really well at PSG and Lazio. I think Verratti won Player of the Season for PSG, and Immobile won Player of the Season in Serie A. So I don't think they're going to come back anytime soon. But Insigne, maybe. It's just his wages. So if we can get any of those three back during the course of the save, that would just be beautiful. So we'll see where we get along to. But yeah, that's the save update. Like I said, exciting times at Delfino Pescara, and I'm quite looking forward to, I guess, being challenged by the game, because so far it's still very rosy for me at the moment.
It's like he's playing a completely different version of the game.
It really is, isn't it?
I don't understand any of this at all.
Yeah, this just for context, mate. This is FM23 you're playing. It's
You sure
Yeah,
Yeah,
FM23, all updated.
Wow,
that's right.
okay.
I mean, yeah, all of that sounds completely foreign to me, apart from getting gaslighted by Hatem Ben Arfa. With the exception of that what a bizarre concept that is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's lovely to hear about somebody winning and doing well at the game, but I'm also just a little bit, jealous that it's not me. So I'm excited for you. I'm looking forward to the episode we get to sit down and record, and you can finally tell us that Verratti has come home. or Insigne. Somebody's coming back. One of the older players is making their return. I think that's going to be a beautiful, beautiful moment.
And also,
but mate,
one thing to note, I did actually do friendlies before the season. Dynamo Kiev were one, and Atletico San Luis were the other. Dynamo Kiev we beat 2-1. Atletico San Luis,
They're a good team,
yeah.
Dynamo Kiev. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. So that worked out way. And Atletico San Luis, we beat 6-1. We also had another friendly against somebody else in Mexico. We beat 14-0, and the aforementioned Vagani got 8 goals. So I'm really worried about going back in and just clicking see where we go, because I think he might disappear. He might disappear. But as a 21-year-old who's supposed to be a backup striker, he's become the find and the save. Between him and my defensive midfielder, Palomino, they've been fantastic for me.
Find of the save so far. You
Yes,
never know
that is
who's
correct.
going to come
Yeah,
next.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
exactly, and I think it's very on brand that Atletico San Luis got pumped 6-1, because again that sounds about right. Yeah, it sounds about right to me. Especially if 5 of the goals were corners. So, mate, I'm excited. I'm excited. You know, like I said, we've got this lovely Christmas break coming up now, so content is coming. So, mate, I'm excited to find out about how you get on. Up the Dolphins, basically. That's what we're getting at here. Up the Dolphins. I'm excited. Very, very excited. So there you go. Obviously, if you want to watch Jeb streaming his wonderful Pescara save, we'll talk about at the end of the episode where you can find him doing that. I think, from streaming on our own to stream, playing against the computer, that horrible, horrible computer, is an experience in and of itself. But and I think this is the main meat and potatoes of this episode, because we've all been very, very busy over the last couple of weeks. Jeb and Kev significantly more so than me, because we have all, in some varying capacity, been getting our PvP hats on. It's been, as Jeb mentioned in the episode, the FM playoffs. Shout out the FM playoffs. Wonderful, wonderful competition. Path to the playoffs has been taking place over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure you've watched it, because if you haven't, where have you been? What have you been doing? If you've been watching, you will know that Jeb has been doing an absolutely incredible job hosting all the broadcasts, the drafts, and the competitions themselves. Kev is a permanent fixture on the panel in Path to the Playoffs. I am also occasionally involved in the Path to the Playoffs. I was going to be on a panel last week, but then I got the flu and I couldn't talk or sit up or move. So that we had to get a ringer in, which was a delightful ringer, I have to say. Murph, shout out Murph FM, lovely, lovely man. West Midlands massive. He came in, did a wonderful job. And then last week in Path to the Playoffs too, I was taking part. I think before we talk about the taking part side of things, because it's boring, there's hardly anything to say about my performance, hardly anything we can talk about. What I really wanted to do, because with Jeb and Kev, and I don't really think a lot of people realize how much work goes on behind the scenes to get those broadcasts up and running to the standard that they are. It's really quite an incredible thing. Jeb, you are the driving force behind a lot of it. If you go back and watch previous iterations of the FM playoffs, things like Path to the Playoffs, it's improved broadcast to broadcast and tournament to tournament. But I think if you go back and kind of watch them, you can see the real leap in quality is where kind of Jeb got involved. I mean, if you can, I can't even say summarize what you do, because you just do so much. So talk to us about kind of the behind the scenes, kind of what a Path to the Playoffs tournament or an FM playoffs looks like from your point of view, Jeb. So even if you're not competing, what is it that you do apart from everything?
Well, ironically, I'm just trying to work out which shoulder I need to point on. I'm just going to. There you go. Yeah, ironically, it looks like just a massive fire. That's basically just a really big fire going on. No. We came in. We used to. So we're currently broadcasting on Melon. Melon was used also for the playoffs, and it just unfortunately it's great for this type of interaction where there's 3 of you talking in that type of way. But for a broadcast, it's not great. Unfortunately, it's good if it's like a panel talk or anything along those lines. But for a broadcast where you got lots of moving parts, it just doesn't work. So we built. I built out an OBS profile, and then it started with me just almost directing in the background and pushing buttons and stuff like that. And then we started to add all the extra elements into it, like the stickers that Moz have built and all those type of things. It just made it look nicer. So on any one show, I will have 4 cameras coming in. Sometimes one of them's my own. I will then have 8 streams or 12 streams coming in if it's the playoffs as well. So the PC does make quite a lot of noise, and I don't need the heating on. It's great. It's a self-heated office. So we'll absorb all of them, and it's getting all the communications across all the panels. So we jokingly say up the truck and things like that, but I have people operating a spreadsheet that feeds all the data in via HTML. And it brings all that data together, and it's getting like show flows and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think the one thing that we want to be a playoff show and stuff like that. And I think it's we have to mention Tony's name on the podcast, unfortunately. But as Tony says, we are creating television. That's what we want to create. We want to create something that people can watch, passionate members of the football manager community, but then people that can just drop in and go, "Oh, what's this? Why is this like Soccer Saturday or something along those lines?" That's what we want to create with the playoffs channel. And it's been really well received by particularly the participants, but then also the audience as well are starting to get behind it as well. And like I said, Kev's a permanent fixture. He's got his fence that he sits on, that he brings along, and he sits on that. And he's really key to the broadcast more than anything, because he's almost my backup host. So when I have to go and fix things, or I have to get things across to the social team or anything along those lines, Kev's there alongside that with it. And like I said, it's a lot of moving parts, and we're trying to add more and more each time. So this time around, with the promo videos, which you very delightfully recorded one for us without a voice, but it worked well. But that's what we want. We want to make it entertaining. We want to give the participants a voice as well, so they can go, right, I'm going to win because of this, or they can be really nice. I think there was one video that I rejected. I went, no, that's far too nice. You've been complimentary about everybody. You can't do that. Go re-record it again. And fair play, they did, and they were suitably abusive in a nice way, obviously.
Of course.
But yes. But yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts. I think we've had a power cut, so I lost all power. We've had the internet go down, and then we've had OBS 28 go down about 5 times. Like, that's just OBS 28, unfortunately. But bringing it all together, and we're adding those little extra bits in. And I think the one thing that we did this week, and I'll shout out to Kevin then. Also, the week before, we added a late twist that, to be fair, even the panel didn't know about until like the last minute, because we hadn't decided on it. And this week, I think the idea was we were going to give a Secret Santa gift to every single participant. But that was just going to be, okay, so Rich Owens, we're going to buy you a big festive jumper or something along those lines. And Kev went, no, why not give them a player? And then I basically looked on my other shoulder and went, let's be evil about it. Why not make it naughty or nice? So they open up a Christmas cracker, and the cracker comes out. You either get a dud prize where you lose a player, or you get a player. I was like, Kev was like, no, can't be that mean. Can't be that mean. So yeah, so we gave that gift to an extra player, and that really paid off for Abby in particular, who qualified off the goals of Dusan Zapata, who they got from that Christmas Secret Santa gift. But yeah, that's kind of where it goes. I mean, I'm not going to reveal all the backroom details. I mean, I've got to keep some secrets, but I might have revealed too much. I don't know. We'll see where we go.
No, it's such an incredibly well put together and well organized, I think is the best way I can describe it. I love it, because, anybody who has ever, produced any kind of content with me, and I will constantly apologize to the rest of the guys for this on a weekly basis. I'm so horrifically unorganized in my personal life, like professionally. Everything I do is just sometimes a bit of a mess. As Jeb Kev, there's a fire on Jeb's shoulder, which is constantly going on in my life. Which is what, even on my Twitch, there's the little dog sat there in the house that's on fire. I've got a "this is fine" emote, because this is generally how I feel about everything. This is fine. Everything's absolutely fine. Being involved with an organization like the playoffs is I absolutely love, because I'm told where I need to be, what time I need to be there. I'm told what I need to have done. The level of just punditry before for me was just turning up, and we did this in the older playoffs. So when Tony was inviting me to them, we'd just turn up, we'd just chat, we'd have a good time. And now we have homework. We chat to each individual person, and I've been lucky enough that every playoffs that I've taken part in, I've got to have a chat with Kev, which is one of my favorite bits. So yeah, I get to do all of that. Just it's so professional. And as you mentioned, Tony says we're making, with the playoffs, they're making television, and you can't do that by accident. So the level of planning that goes into it is second to none. It's such a wonderful production.
Yeah, the one thing that we kind of got told off, we kept on banging about this podcast too much on the playoffs, which
I don't think anybody noticed.
Yeah,
really.
no, we got told off about it from last time, from the previous iteration of playoffs in FM22. So we tried, we agreed on allocated where we could talk about the podcast times, and then we came up with a lovely banner that just came up, and that worked out. But then that also just became a little in joke into the thing. It was just like, we're not promoting a podcast or anything along those lines, and this banner would come up with our three lovely faces on, available on all good and bad podcast platforms along the. And that, like I said, it just became a nice little joke that we brought up. And then obviously when you came into Path to the Playoffs, like, right, we can bring that out again. There you go. So it worked really nicely.
Well, that's exactly it. As we were saying earlier, unfortunately, I had to drop out due to illness. But Path to the Playoffs one, the panel was going to be the three of us and H2. So it would have been weird if it hadn't been mentioned. It would have been very, very strange. But also, I was looking forward to just being a guest again. Don't get me wrong, it's lovely sitting here and hosting a podcast. I massively enjoy it. But being the straight man is a really, really weird feeling. It's a very, very strange feeling. So I was looking forward to just getting to sit there and not have to worry about the hosting side of things and just getting to say words. But hopefully I'll get to do it again at some point in the near future. Speaking of panels, Kev, you are a permanent fixture on those panels. As somebody who has been on panels with you, as somebody who has just sat there and watched the playoffs, it's a genuine pleasure to sit there and watch you work, mate. I think you found your wheelhouse there, friend.
It's a really strange thing. So before doing it, about, I don't know, it's only about like 8 months ago, maybe something like that, for the first time, I would look in on it and think, could I, should I, would I, will I, won't I, all that kind of stuff regarding the sort of panel role. And I'd kind of talked myself out of it before I'd even been given an opportunity to be a part of anything, to be honest, thinking that looks overly complicated and it looks overly stressful and all that stuff. And it couldn't be further from the truth, to be honest. Let's get this absolutely clear from the very word go. Your suggestion is that the three of us have been quite busy with PvP. Jebaru's been incredibly busy. I've shown up and said words. And that is to a point. There's a truth in that. There is a bit more to it. So basically, my role, a few days before the draft happens, or even on the day itself, I try and communicate with a selected couple of the participants, and ask, what's your thoughts? What's your plan? What's your expectation? What should I be looking out for you with? Have you got a key person that you're trying to draft, etc., etc., all that kind of stuff, just to get a feel for that. And then during the actual draft itself, you have to have a certain level of understanding about the actual player pool. So you can talk a little bit about who comes up at what point and whether it's a good buy to buy them at this point, or should they have waited for 5 rounds to get them later, or whatever, that kind of stuff. But it is just about having a chat amongst yourselves as a panel and communicating something about what it's like to be in the shoes of a drafter. But also, where are we heading? What's it going to be like on the game night? What are we going to be looking at within this particular squad? How are they going to set up, etc.? But it's a great role. It really is that thing of show up and say words and hope it kind of comes, because you can't plan for half of it. Jebaru plans the show out with some other guys like Tony or whatever, and knows where we're heading and how the timings are supposed to work and where we're supposed to get to. But as a pundit, my job is to actually just watch what's happening in front of me and communicate something of it and give an opinion on something of it. And it's an awful lot of fun. And it's completely the reverse. To me, it is far less stressful to be a panelist than it is to be a participant. There's a lot more pressure on the participant, because you don't want to make yourself look silly. You want to be successful. You want to win stuff. You want to qualify. You want, all those kinds of things. And you've got to entertain your voice, your chat on your stream, but also talk to the people in the voice chat as well, the other participants, etc. There's a few more plates to spin, and I get to watch Jebaru spin the plates and have a chat about Football Manager with 3 incredibly cool people, whoever it happens to be on the panel. So that's mostly it. The only other thing that I would say is that it's very, very kind of you and sort of 95% right to suggest this is a very well-run, oiled machine that works well. We know where it is. We know what it is. We know where we're heading. And there's a lot of truth in that. But there also is still things that we're always improving on week after week, month after month. There's always something that we can identify. And that's another one of the roles that I feel like I'm going to be able to contribute to as we move forward. After the finals, specifically, there will be a gathering of key people, and we will talk about what happened, what went well, what didn't, what do we learn, where do we go, what do we do for next time, and helping to structure some of that and articulate some of that is where I can also have an impact, I hope, moving forward in that kind of context. So those are my kind of 2 spots that I feel at the moment. But I have the best time. I've said this for a little while. In FM22, the highlight of my game cycle was being invited and participating in this capacity on the FM playoffs. My anticipation is that whilst that's still going to be the case and it's going to be amazing, my highlight of FM23 is going to be sitting here with you guys doing a podcast each week. And that's incredible in itself. But it's opportunity on opportunity. And it all stems from people reaching out and say, are you interested? We'd like to have you on board. And the key thing for this group is that there's about 20 to 25 people on any given week that the playoff happens that play some part in it. And it would not run in the way it currently does without all of those people doing all of those things. However amazing Jeb is, he can't actually do the whole thing on his own.
I can try, but yeah, there should be a bigger version of this. But and I think shout out to like the things that we've improved, like from last time around. There's like little bits that we've added in, like I said, with the promo videos. And there's like subtle additions, and I think it's something that we, to be fair, this time around we didn't have a draft break, and we've had that every single time before. But both iterations of Path to the Playoffs have drafted a break this time, which was nice. But they do get boring after a while once you get to the 12, usually around the 12 to 17 picks, where people are running out of money and picking up bargain signings, and you're going, oh, Ben. Anyone know who Ben is? Nope, nobody knows who Ben is. Oh, okay. And then
I still don't know who Ben is.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody's doorbell rings, so it kicked off the conversation that way. But it's adding topics, or we bring in viewer questions on at that time, and we can the draft can continue, or we can have a look through, and then we're, instead of recapping every single pick, we go back and go, right, this was the picks in pick number 17. This is who got picked on that side of things. Right, let's go back to our topic of discussion, which is, well, I think this week was mashed potato or roast potatoes we were roasting. And we all know what the correct answer is.
We do.
Sorry to the former members of this podcast, you're wrong.
The other thing that I forgot, actually, one of my very key roles from this last week, specifically on Thursday evening during the game night itself, is that I had to spend the evening with the other panelists basically shouting goal stick piano because he was a bit good. And that's all we basically said all evening long was goal stick piano. And you'd come and talk to us about why stick piano was so amazing on that particular match. So that was the other key role that I have on a Thursday evening.
Yeah. And I think as a general review, it was really nice to see new faces as well to the playoffs, but then also just even to drafting, seeing like people we've not seen before, or they've not been seen in a while, like Trek coming back. I think it's a year since he's drafted in any shape or form. He was fantastic. He obviously stormed his group, and he's I think he's picked pick 1 for the FM playoffs. And then people like Car X as well, who's he had a child last week, like his firstborn, even though he does look 14. So I don't know where that one is, but yeah, he had a really good week, and it was getting people like him invited in. We had JM Forts, who's been around the scene for a while, but he's never come in. Gavin Brash as well, who didn't have the best of weeks a week before, and I think what's the way the path to the playoffs is, and there was discussion of like, do we reformat it? Do we do it a different way? And I've immediately gone back and gone, no, because that final day excitement, particularly on Path to the Playoffs 1, but even on Path to the Playoffs 2 this week, was phenomenal. Past the playoffs 1, there was Trek had already won the league, and then there were somebody, I can't remember who was second in there. How We Roll Owen was second.
Yeah.
They'd already qualified. But all of the other parties, 5 of the other 5 participants were all fighting out for that final 2 places. And Salty B and State Blake played out a dodgy draw, as I called it, and they both went through. And then Alistair missed out by 1 goal. So usually it goes to head, but Alistair missed out by 1 goal that week. And at one stage, everybody who could have qualified was in a qualifying position. They all had it in their own hands, and they all blew it in their own way. Speaking of blowing it, Rich.
Well, I mean, that I think really nicely wraps up our PvP portion of the podcast. Cheers, boys.
Really does.
See you next week, audience.
Explain yourself, young man.
Yes,
What happened?
yes.
What happened? What happened was Andy Carroll happened. So, for those of you that don't know, I was fortunate enough to take part as an actual participant in this in Path to the Playoffs 2 last week, as we are recording this. I really enjoy taking part in the playoffs. As Kev was saying earlier, from a participant, it's more difficult from a participant point of view than as a panelist point of view. I've done both, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that, mate. I love being on a panel, and I really enjoy being part of the competition, but it's not easy. It's really not easy. The draft is stressful enough, but then the actual competition itself is not easy either. It's really not easy. I spent a lot of time on Thursday kind of reiterating to myself and also to the audience when I was streaming my opinion of Path to the Playoffs as somebody who's I've sat on panels and I've watched it unfold in front of me. I've taken part in competitions. I always think you need 10 points is kind of the magic number. In the same way that Premier League teams say we need to hit the magic 40-point mark for survival, 10 points should probably see you through in a Path to the Playoffs. Both Path to the Playoffs I've done, I've missed out by a point. This week's was no exception. A lot of the time, my experience in the actual tournaments themselves seem to go very similarly. Opening day draw, the last time we did Path to the Playoffs, I beat RDF Tactics 2-2. I will maintain I beat him 2-2. It wasn't a draw. I should have got 3 points for that game because I battered Aaron and it felt really nice, but still drew. Saying this time around, I played AJ NRK, the first game, drew 2-2, conceded 2 goals from corners, and felt like I should have come out of the game with something. But I was like, hey, it's not a bad start. Got beaten by Limo in just in a really dull game. Not a lot happened. He scored 2 goals in 4 minutes at the beginning of the second half. Not much going on there. I lost to Car X, who I'd like to say I handed it to him. That was my present to him for becoming a father for the first time. I got him 3 points.
Very generous of you.
I know. I live to give. It's a curse. It's an absolute curse. Now, at this point, I've played 3 and I've got 1 point from 3 games. But I'm not panicking because I said to you when Kev and I were chatting before the draft and he was asking me what the plan was, I had a system in my mind and I drafted to the system. I feel like, and you guys will be able to give me a bit of feedback here, I feel like I drafted quite well, all things considered. I liked my squad. It felt like it was quite well balanced. I don't think there were any stinkers in there. And I also drafted a goalkeeper called arse because it's just a funny word. And I didn't get to ask you before we recorded. Did either of you pick up that for the first 6 games, the first 2 names on my bench were arse and burn? Because if you didn't,
we did not, unfortunately.
We didn't.
It's a
I'm
shame.
ashamed to say that we didn't now. That's quite impressive of you.
And then you actually even got the magic gift as well from Secret Santa.
Oh, I did.
Of Bastoni, but I couldn't for the life of me remember his first name. So he just became Barry Bastoni.
Barry Bastoni. Yeah. So it was that was lovely. That was lovely. When there was the announcement there was going to be a twist, I was genuinely terrified because I know the twist in the Path to Playoffs 1 was extra money. So everyone got more. I think it was an extra £50 million in the draft.
That was it.
So that was lovely. Obviously when the twist got announced, we'd already drafted. The teams were there, and I was quite happy with mine. Ironically, the one position that I was a little bit not disappointed with, but I thought maybe I could have strengthened a little bit more was centre back. So then obviously we get in there, like there's going to be a twist. In my head, I can just see that there's that screenshot from I think it was the showdown last year when they were all told they were going to be managing other people's teams, and there's a lot of very, very shocked YouTube thumbnail faces. There was a lot of these. And I was like, I'm going to do one. If that happens, it's going to happen. Or just crying on camera. And when it was announced we were going to get potentially extra players, I was quite excited because I saw Billy Bastoni, big Bazza Bastoni in the pool. I was like, I'd like that. And then when he came out, I was delighted because I think he started every game for me. He was far and away the second best centre back I had in that squad. I mean, I had Adair Militao, which I was delighted with. And then it was a lot of young French centre backs and Dan Burn. So he slotted in really, really nicely. And like I say, the tactics seem to be working there or thereabouts. When the highlights coming in, the ball was being moved around the way I wanted it to. The one problem I was having, though, seemed to be scoring goals. Vlahovic is a fraud, and I cannot stand him. A lot of my chat, though, he seemed to be really divisive in my chat as well during the stream. They're like, oh, he's either fantastic or he's complete clown shoes. And I got clown shoes version. He scored 2 goals in the entire tournament for me, both penalties. Didn't score a single goal from open play across the 7 games, which was very, very frustrating because defensively I was fairly solid. The midfield were doing exactly what I wanted the midfield to be doing. Like the attacking options were all playing really, really well, but I just wasn't scoring enough goals. Just was not scoring enough goals. Fortunately, I played Koza Bob, and that changed dramatically because I beat him 4-1, I think it finished. And suddenly the team were playing exactly how I wanted them to play, but they were also scoring goals. So I played Koza Bob. Then I came up against Stick Piano. Stick Panini, and I want to say I gave him a game. I didn't because Stick Piano steamrolled everybody. If you missed last week's past the playoffs, Stick Piano, for my money, is arguably one of the best PvP players on the scene at the moment. He's a tactical genius, and he just made me look silly. Lost 5-2. I like to think,
interestingly,
yeah.
Interestingly, Wickdiv might not agree with you. Hey,
yeah.
Wickdiv took him down.
What a performance from Abby, by the way. What a performance that was.
Very impressive.
Superb. Considering, he steamrolled everybody, and then on the last day, Abby took him down. So congratulations. I did say, look, credit where due to myself. I did say to Abby after our game, I thought that Abby was going to be the one to take him down, and they proved me right, which was lovely. So Abby, you're welcome. Enjoy the proper tournament. Abby, who of course I beat 4-2, which again out of nowhere. So in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the actual competition itself, of the 4 people that qualified, I took 3 points off 2 of them. And the other 2, I kind of gave a game in a roundabout kind of way. But then it all came down to the last game. Somehow it all came down to the last game. And as you were saying earlier, we were in a position where everybody, I think we're going into the last game, Stick had qualified because going into the last game, Stick had won 6 from 6. Stick had qualified. Car X had qualified. So the remaining 2 positions it was a fight to the death, literally, between Abby, myself, Koza Bob, Limo, and AJ NIK. The only person that couldn't go through on the last day was JM Thoughts, who I think was on 2 points from his first 6 games. I had JM on the last day, and I made the mistake of, when the squad screens were loading up, when I saw JM starting 11, for the first time that night, I thought that looks beatable. And we'd just come off the back of a really, really strong 4-2 performance against Abby. I was like, you know what? All I needed to do was win that game, because going into that final game, Stick had Abby to play, so Abby needed to beat Stick, which didn't look likely. But of course, thanks to my magnificent pep talk, she came through and she beat him 2-1. So again, congratulations to Abby. What a performance from them. It was in my hands. It was in my hands. And I lost 2-1 to JM, who hadn't won a game the entire tournament. But I honestly, in hindsight, I've looked back at it and I don't know what I could have done differently. I conceded 2 horrible goals. in particular, when I looked at JM's starting 11, I looked at his midfield pairing of Julian Weigl and Carlos Soler. And I looked at that and I thought, that is not good. That is a poor midfield. I've definitely, when I've been sat on panels, I've definitely given pelters to people that have picked players like Julian Weigl because I just don't see the appeal. Except he played the most beautiful assist to Carlos Soler, who scored a volley first time from the edge of the 6-yard box. So almost from the side of the goal that went straight over Jordan Pickford's head. So I'm a goal down to a goal that shouldn't have been. I think that was at that point, I think that was JM's first attacking highlight as well, which was slightly frustrating. And then a couple of minutes later, on the cusp of half time, Andy Carroll scored from a corner against me, and I was deeply, deeply unhappy. First of all, going in 2-0 down at halftime in a game that I've been dominating, that I needed to win, was frustrating. And secondly, even though I wasn't watching the broadcast, I could hear how delighted Ali was when that goal went in. I could just hear, because Ali is a big advocate of large Andrew Carroll. So I could definitely hear him celebrating that goal slightly too loudly. I got a Vlahovic set penalty in the second half. I threw everybody forward. There were goals cleared off the line. I hit the post. I missed sitters. As it turned out, all I needed was an equaliser. A draw would have got me through that game. A draw would have got me through, but I just couldn't find a way through. Crashed out, lost 2-1, didn't make it to the final competition. Am I angry? Yes. Could I have done better? Yes. Did I have a good time? Yes. Am I happy that JM got to finish the tournament with a win? Also, yes, because nobody wants to be the guy that doesn't, win a single game throughout the competition. But also, as I've said before, and I'll say it fine for the final time now, contractually, you are not allowed to host Football Manager Therapy and be consistently good at PvP. It's one or the other, and I've made my bed and I've chosen to lie in it. It was, yeah, it is what it is, boys. It is what it is. But I had a great time and I was delighted to be invited to take part. Shout out to Ali and Moza, who run a wonderful draft competition. Up the truck, up the panels, up everybody. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. The playoffs themselves, brilliant, brilliant fun.
It is. Can I do a couple of little shout out bits?
Oh, please.
Within regards to not the playoffs specifically, but PvP and drafting. So I think it's really important to say there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, how do you get involved? How do you become part of all of these things? The first thing I would say to you is if you're looking to be a participant in one of these events, go and find the community run draft competitions and try your hand at them in there. People like Cy Maggio do one on a Sunday evening. Your Limo does one regularly. Cosza Bob runs one regularly. There's lots of them out there that are really, really good places to go and say, can I participate in your community draft? Can I begin to understand what that feels like to be a participant? Because it's a really, really strange but amazing aspect of the game. To play against another human opponent is very different than the AI. So get involved in those. That's the first thing I would say. If you want to participate in one of these competitions, shout out to Cy Maggio and the guys that are doing the FM rankings, by the way, because that's the umbrella that now we can define, what sort of competition you're entering. And if you want to be part of the FM rankings, you have to go and find the ranked tournaments. If you want to be part of those, my first bit of advice, start streaming. Because if you're not streaming these days, you probably won't get onto many of them because it's one of the prerequisites that we put it out there into the world of Twitch, etc., because that's what we're here to do: create entertainment, create TV shows, etc. And that's what a lot of these drafts do. So start streaming, because streaming and learning to do the drafting all at the same time is going to be really hard for you. So start streaming, and then find the application forms that are all part of all of these different tournaments. You've got loads of different tournaments out there these days. Go check them out. Then on top of that, and here's the important thing for me, is if you see that you've got a skill set that you think a drafting tournament could use, be it as a panelist, a host, an organizer, a project manager. It could be a statistical guy, an analytical guy. It could be graphics. It could be anything. There's going to be a position for you somewhere in a draft tournament, but you have to go and let them know that you're there and that you want to be involved, because it's not going to magically stroll up and be offered to you if you don't most of the time. So find out who's running these things, find out how you can get involved, but do it because you want to and you want the love of doing it, not because you think that's going to lead you into participating into more drafts yourself, because those are two very different roles. And the other thing I would say is, if you haven't checked them out yet as a viewer, go and find them to watch. Specifically for us, it's the FM playoffs. So we're going to be back in early January with the finals for this season's playoffs. Come and find us on those evenings where we draft, on those evenings where we run a game, and you'll spend 3-4 hours in the company of like-minded people, all chatting about FM, all having a great time, and watching some of the most entertaining stuff go down, especially in those last week matches where it all matters. But yeah, come and get involved. Come and be a part of it. I have met so many people and actually talked to so many people through drafting in this community than pretty much through any other mechanism, and it has enhanced my existence within this community. So please come and get involved in it. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely echoes those thoughts. I mean, getting involved in the chat, and also if you bring those skill sets as well, that really helps. And I think it is key. Like sometimes you're not going to get that automatic entry into drafts. I think that the ongoing joke until this week is I have not been in a competitive draft for 2 years. Last time I was in a competitive draft, that's how I met Kev, and he beat me. Yeah,
I seem to remember this.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got a little a picture behind you that we can't see. It's just out of camera, out of lighting at the minute. But yeah, when he won the Winter Cup. But yeah, it was. And you meet those people. And like I said, I think it's bring that skill set. And yes, you might get an entry somewhere along the way, but I think it's just engaging yourself in that community. We have a really big backroom team. We call it the truck and the gazebo and various other things, but they all sit in a chat while the drafts and the games are going on. They're all across all the streams, and they just have a laugh about it. Some of the stuff that we brought out of like paths to the playoffs over the past week, some of the clips that have come out. My favourite one is the out of context United City FM, where I asked him about what celebrities would you like what celebrities would you like to draft against? And I said, how about Nicki Minaj, in reference to a previous podcast? And somebody just clipped the bit where I said Nicki Minaj, and then Kev goes, yeah, all right, I'll have that. And that's all he said. Yeah, completely out of context. But those type of things, and like we get those laughs on that
I stand by what I said. What can I tell you?
Yeah. There was what was it, Rich? You said this week about Limo. Limo likes. I'm not trying to remember.
Oh gosh,
it got clips heavily. And
it did, didn't it? Yeah.
It's
gone. It's complete. But
we'll have to look.
We'll dig it out, and we'll retweet the tweets.
It is worth asking. It is worth asking the question now, after 2 years, Jeb. How did you get on in the draft?
This week, yeah. So competitive drafts. I mean, Road to Legends approached me and asked me to go in. I kept it reasonably secret, mainly because I forgot to send any pictures or badges or anything to Road to Legends because I was that busy with paths to the playoffs. So that was on Tuesday night. Shout out to Gouda, who I brought in as my assistant manager. He does really sterling work. He's got a nice little tool for pulling them out databases. And we tried to anticipate what the draft pool was going to be. So it was an 8-person. You did the draft on the night and you went straight into the league from there. I think we had Tim Lewis, Gavin Brash, White Callum, who was on the panel with us the day before as well.
Who was
and then
brilliant.
Who was brilliant this week. Yeah, really good.
Shout out to Callum. Exceptional job for his first time on a draft panel. Like, incredible.
And despite my hatred of it, it has taken 10, 15 shows for somebody to say unbelievable Jeb. It's still not like
I'm so disappointed.
It's the first time it's happened, and despite my hatred of it, but there we are, it's happened. But so we got into that and we tried to preempt what the stipulation was going to be, and we're just like, right, so last week it was eliminated teams from the last 16 of the World Cup, so it was like, right, I think it's going to be eliminated teams from the quarterfinals, because you had Brazil, Portugal, England, and the Netherlands. I went, that's a really good draft pool. So we built it all on that. And then we got to 5 o'clock when they announced the stipulation, went, nope, it's all the teams are in the quarterfinals. It was like, okay, fair enough. We're going to stick to the plan that we've already planned out on, except I'm just going to add in Konate in and Nkunku, and that's all we added in. I got my entire back line that I put down as my first choices. So I had Ramsdale, Hatterbohr, Alex Tellez, Ibrahima Konate, Yao Pelina as my defensive midfielder / halfback. And then obviously the other central defender, just because every single time they get drafted in the path to the playoffs, I say dreams can come true. Gabriel. So we did it that way. We played Tim in the first game. I should have had a penalty. And then 5 seconds later, Hatterbohr put in a reasonably innocuous challenge. He got sent off. And then Tim went 1-0 up. And that was the end of that game. Next game, I was 1-0 down. And then apparently the game's nerfed near post corners. I'd argue not. I feel sorry for build-up play because I scored 3 near post corners in the second half. It was exactly the same move again and again. Big Ibrahima Konate came in, banged them into the back of the net, and that was that. 3-1 I'd won. I felt a little bit horrible about it, but then also I won, so I was happy about it. And then we kind of just went up on a tear from there. The one thing I will learn for next time is I set up my attacking corner routine. I did set up my defending corner routine, so I got done by Coach Zanko off 2 corners, including aforementioned Andy Carroll scoring against me. And he had Andy Carroll and Olivier Giroud up front, so it was a beautiful front 2. But from there we went on. We won quite convincingly the rest of our games. We drew with Wal McConville, who basically was a 250 million budget, and his first 2 picks were Alisson and Messi. So he had 100 million left for the rest of his draft. And Aaron Ramsdale has become very cheap in draft mode, but I kind of understand that now because I'm trying to think who it was who went round. Oh, it was Jesse Lingard went round him and just kind of p-rolled it into the net. And Aaron Ramsdale just stood there and then dove the wrong way. Like it just literally just completely did nothing. Ended up with an average 6.2 across the entire tournament, which is for a goalkeeper is pretty disastrous. But final game, we needed to win to get to 3rd place, and we came up against Y Callum, who'd just come off his first victory, so he was all bouncy and bubbly and everything like that. Destroyed him 3-0. And we qualified as the 3rd place runner-up. But it's nice to see these community tournaments. So Road to Legends has been there or thereabouts every now and then, but it's even noticing this time around they've had issues with connections, and I know they use something similar to Melon to stream from, but that's where the restrictions are sometimes as well. But I think the one thing that I did notice this time around on that, and a big shout out on their side of things, was they adapted some stuff. So there was one of the streamers that was lagging horribly, and we were waiting half an hour for games to finish. I did 2 Italian lessons while I waited for a game to finish on one of them. But yeah, they adapted. They asked him, can you stop streaming because it's slowing down all the games? And then actually on their stream, none of the games were lagging and they were all being well thing. And some of the panelists on there, we've got our eye on now as well. So it's nice to see. So the finals of them are on Thursday, which is a shame because we were going to bring back the network game. But now you'll just have to watch me go and win Road to Legends.
See,
Exactly.
look how much fun everybody's having.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about drafting in so many different directions. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's awesome. I am feeling completely left out. I'm going to have to participate in some in the new year and get my rankings back again because I've gone off the rankings a little bit. So watch this space for the new year. I have to get involved. But yeah, make sure anybody out there, come and find a place in these competitions and either help out or play in them or whatever. You'll have a great time.
And I did get carried away with myself halfway through the draft as well and just went, right, I want Mateus Nunes because he's obviously done well in my Wolves saves and I've seen him do well there. And then I was like, I've also got Mateus Pereira on this list and I've also got Mateus Cunha. I'm going to draft 3 people called Mateus and that's going to be my attacking midfield lineup. And that's how I picked my attacking midfield. To be fair, it worked out all right.
Yeah, it worked out. It seemed to work out for the best. Next time, an entire team of Mateuses, please and thank you. That's what I'd like to see. Yeah, just to echo the other guy's sentiments as well. You know, my background outside of streaming is things like stand-up comedy, which is a really, really, really competitive industry. Applying for gigs and that kind of thing in comedy, can be so demotivating because there's only a finite amount of spots. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of comedians vying for the same spaces. Rejection is something you have to get used to in that respect. Streaming and PvP in FM is the opposite end of the spectrum because it's so supportive. We've got such a wonderful community. If you're applying for spots in a certain draft and they don't have them for you, people will point you in the direction of other drafts, other community streams, other things you can get involved in. And you're going to meet some wonderful people. You're going to make some friends. You're going to have a great time. If you're sat on the fence and you're thinking, maybe this is the kind of thing I'd like to get involved in, but I'm a little bit nervous about, applying for stuff, wholeheartedly, I'd recommend doing it. Just send an email, drop somebody a DM, get them on Discord, however it may be. You need to apply for these things, fill out an application form, because people are nice. This is a community where people like to take the time. They will, if there's not a spot for you in a certain competition, they will point you in the direction of somebody else you can chat to. Like Kev's mentioned, there's some really, really good weekly community drafts that happen, which are run by fundamentally really nice people, which again isn't something you get to say a lot in other industries like this. So get involved because they are so much fun. And hey, maybe if you're like Jeb, you can win something. I don't know. Imagine winning a PvP competition. Couldn't be me, boys. Couldn't be me. But yeah.
Shout out to Cozza Bob on his community tournament. I think he's done 26 of them and he's never won it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's great, isn't it?
he's having fun doing it as well. So
exactly. He's having fun. He's done 26 and no wins. Just implies he's doing it for the love of the game.
Yep,
and
exactly.
I respect that enormously. Respect it enormously. From things that I respect enormously to things that necessarily I don't, because I have some opinions and some things to say on a certain subject to make up the debate portion of today's podcast. Speaking of debates, obviously we had one in the previous episode a couple of weeks ago, where Kev and Jeb both very, very articulately put forth their thoughts on playing the game with attribute masking turned on or off. Congratulations, Kev.
Why,
the
thank
people
you.
the people agree with you. Again, weirdly enough, what are the chances?
I blame you, Rich, for getting ill on this because the poll was a week too late. So it got out of people's minds and they just went, oh, I like Kev. I'm going to click that one.
Sorry. I apologize. Damn you, immune system.
There's only so many Twitter accounts I can make to be able to vote in these things. So for goodness sake, so let's sort that out for next time.
Exactly. Yeah. The slightly divided City FM. They vote frequently. Yeah. There's loads of them. Loads and loads and loads of them. So anyway, congratulations, Kev. Is that you? Are you 2? Is that 3-0 now? You are.
It's a couple, I think.
It's hard to keep hard to keep
it,
track of success, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who needs to win draft competitions when you can win debates on the podcast?
I would just like to win something, if that's okay. If that's okay, I would like to taste victory in some vague capacity. So you know what? I'm gonna have another go today. I'm going to press the button.
Oh, I'm all small.
Jeb's gone little. Oh, it's like we're doing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but with Jeb instead of Rick Morales. Because you're more affordable and here now. Don't get stuck in a massive bowl of Cheerios, please. That scene gave me nightmares for years.
Wow.
I know. We're just learning more about me as a human being now. Yep. That scene in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids where they're stuck in the massive bowl of cereal terrified me well into my early teens.
Shall I take over Master of Ceremonies then for this debate? Is that sounds like
please,
a fair way to
please,
do it? Yeah?
I think that's a very fair way to do it. We'll hand over to Jebaroo, who's going to talk us through this week's debate section. I'm coming for you, Kev.
Yeah, hello from the small box in the middle here. Oh, anyway, this week's debate: directors of football, yes or no? I think we're going to start. I'm not even going to give you the choice. Rich, you're going to start. You're arguing against directors of football, and you've got 2 minutes for that argument starting now.
Do I even need the full 2 minutes? Directors of football are, in my opinion, a colossal waste of time. I don't think they add value to the game. I don't necessarily think that the transfers that they recommend you add value to your squad. The only exception I can think of where a director of football might be necessary is if you are doing a save based around having a director of football. Then I can kind of see where you're coming from. The rest of the time, I can't think of a single time in any iteration of Football Manager I have ever played where having a director of football in my team has benefited me in any way, shape, or form. I spent many football managers around, I'd say between around FM 13 and maybe 15, constantly, regardless of the save I was playing, being recommended Josh Brownhill. Just every single time. Didn't want him, had no interest in him. Director of football would override me and sign him, and he would sit in my reserves for 3 or 4 years, occasionally going out on loan before just leaving on a free transfer, having accomplished nothing. I don't think there's a single player they can bring in that you couldn't find yourself, especially if you are playing, as Kev likes to do, and also me occasionally, with attribute masking turned off, because I think the scouting you can do yourself is always going to be more beneficial than that of a director of football. They overpay for players. The players they bring in, generally speaking, aren't good enough. I am perfectly capable of making my own awful transfer decisions. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. Thank you very much.
20 seconds left. There we are. Kev, directors of football, why are they a good thing in your opinion?
Yeah, you see, I don't think I'm going to need the full 2 minutes either, to be honest. Firstly, let's just say there are occasions in FM, especially in FM 23, where I need to be guided by a responsible adult, because I have very much demonstrated that I'm incapable of being that in this particular game. And that is my director of football. They set parameters for you, they can set guidance for you in terms of how your club is going to move forward. If you are just thinking that they are only there to recommend players and do some of your scouting bits for you, then you're not using them in the right way. They can do lots of things for you. They can sort contracts out. They can take over responsibility for aspects of the club that you don't want them to, if you get the right ones with the right kind of attributes that are going to help your club. And as I say, within that context, I sometimes need a responsible adult, and that's what they provide. So I'm really happy to work under a director of football at all, because it's like any other aspect of the club. If you want a good medical setup, you need a good chief medical officer and a good doctor in the club, and you're going to listen to their advice because they know things about their chosen subject. And the director of football is no different. They can contribute to the wellness of your team moving forward, the wellness of your club moving forward, and they can take responsibility away from you and let you focus on the important things about figuring out how to get your best 11 players playing the best way on the football pitch. They take away that responsibility, which is great. So I'm very, very happy to have a director of football in. I use them every save that I have the opportunity to. It's about getting the right one in and enabling them to do what they are more qualified to do than I am. And that's absolutely fine with me. But can I reiterate again? I need a responsible adult.
Wow. To the second. I mean, does he get bonus points to that? I don't know. Rich, your rebuttal to Kev's.
If you aren't making the argument that you need a responsible adult in your life to help you, which I can completely agree with, I think that the absolute opposite of that is a director of football. It's the blind being led by the significantly blinder. I don't think they have the cognitive ability to help in any way, shape, or form. They do offer other services, which I think they all perform equally as badly. I cannot remember the last time I've ever tried delegating a contract negotiation to a director of football where the player or staff member has accepted the contract that has been offered. And that's varying from directors of football who are average to ones with very, very high attributes. Every single time the players reject the deals. I set the but then if I go in and do it myself with identical parameters, they will accept them because they like me. I just don't think that they are capable of doing any of the things that you would rely on them to do well enough to actually warrant them doing them for you. How many seconds have I got left, Jeb?
That's it, done. So
that's all I needed. That's literally all I needed.
And Kev, your final words, please.
Okay. So hear me out, everybody. Here's the rub for you. I have the reputation of being one of the nicest people in this community, and I can only apologize for what I'm about to say. Rich, if you'd have played Mr. Brownhill, you'd have probably done a lot better than you actually did. You should have listened to your director of football. They're qualified to make those kinds of calls and bring in the players that you need. And you probably should have listened to him. Everybody needs a responsible adult. Listen to your director of football, put them in place, people, use them. They're there to help you. You can focus on what's really important to you as a football manager, and that is to work with your team and get the best results. Don't need anything else.
I'm going to say the words lovely stuff. I just want to come back on the path to the playoffs here anyway. Right. Well, obviously the vote will go out this week. So we will vote on this. My opinion is I'm going to sit on Kev's fence here completely until I just remember that directors of football are completely pointless. I've already pointed it out when we were talking about attribute masking. So sorry, Kev, you're wrong. Anyway, that's me sitting on the fence. Oh, I've fallen off it. What a shame.
There you go. But wasn't it lovely the few seconds you were on there, though? Isn't it?
It's a great place to be.
Yeah. It's well cushioned. I didn't expect
You'd be
that.
surprised, really.
Yeah.
You know,
it really is. It's just calming. It's like a Resident Evil save room. You just feel secure and nice when you're in there. There's also a typewriter for some reason. Well, there we go. There we go. We will put the vote will go up on Twitter this week at FMT Pod on Twitter. Feel free to come on there and tell us who you think is correct. Is it me or is it Kev? It can only be one, unfortunately, because that is how democracy works. It can. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm happy to call that a podcast.
It definitely was one. I can
absolutely
confirm.
That feels like a podcast to me. That feels like a podcast. Which means before we go, as we always like to do, I think it's only fair we all tell you where you can find us if you would like to experience more of us. Jeb, as somebody who's doing some PvP this week, start with yourself. Where can people find you doing all those wonderful things you do on the internet?
Yep, twitch.tv/Jebaroo, twitter.com/thejebaroo. Also, just shout out twitch.tv/FM playoffs, because obviously that is back in January. We do want you all to tune in and come along and see Kev on the panel at least. And unfortunately not Rich in the competition, but he will be there on the sidelines cheering along. Kev, where can we find you?
So, yeah, you can find me at the United City FM, both on Twitter and Twitch. I'm on Twitch every weekday afternoon, 3 till 5 p.m. I will be there all of this coming week. I'm going to have a week off between Christmas and New Year. I know, sue me, what can you do? But that's going to be the case. So come and find me there. Have we got like a special banner that's going to come across the bottom of the screen for the playoffs or anything, Jeb? Or, no, fair enough. Okay.
Needs be, yeah.
I'd also shout out that I'm on a brilliant podcast, because I do that wherever I go. But there's no point here because you're already here. Hi, we're on a podcast. It's great. Come and join us next week.
Absolutely. All of those things. I can provide some kind of special banner for this next session because I do have one. I know. Look at me go. Consummate professional. If you would like to see me doing things, you can do so at twitch.tv/RichOwensFM. If you'd like to see a grown man having a full-on emotional breakdown about Mexican football clubs, I do that on a fairly regular basis. At Rich Owens FM on Twitter. You can find us there. And also, if you're not already, why not take a moment out of your time to subscribe? And by the way, special behind the scenes look here. What was written on the other side of Rich's card on his FM on the promo video? What could it have been? Because on one side it just said "Wild card bitches, yeehaw." On the other side, it just said patreon.com/FMT pod, which you are welcome to sign up to. It's our Patreon service. There's memberships available for £1 a month. You get access to episodes early. You get special Patreon only content, which includes things like the FMT live show from Nottingham, which we recorded last November, which has actually been put up there temporarily for free as an apology from us for not having a podcast out last week. But things that are behind paywalls, get early access to episodes, get bonus content, well worth your time and attention. If you've got £1 a month burning a hole in your pocket, we would appreciate it. If not, just keep watching us for free because we appreciate and value you because you're wonderful people. That, ladies and gentlemen, I think quite beautifully wraps up another episode of Football Manager Therapy. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you very, very soon. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye.